I'm glad that somebody is doing something. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Cal Rittenhouse starting the Media Accountability Project. Now, what is this project? What is the purpose? I'm glad you asked. The purpose of the Media Accountability Project is to hold media personalities and companies and whatnot accountable for their actions when they spread lies about people, when they spread dangerous rumors, when they send threats to people. Someone or some people must hold them accountable for their actions, because if they're not, then they're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that's very dangerous to our society and world at large. Now, before I go any further, let's roll the clip. In this clip, you'll see Cal Rittenhouse on Fox talking to Tucker about the whole situation. But after we get done watching that, I'll come back. I'll talk about what was said there. Then I'll give you the rest of my 2 cents and my deep detailed analysis. And then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Kyle, thanks so much for coming on tonight. I can't think of many people who've been at the receiving end of this much sinister lying from so-called news organizations as you have. How are you going to respond?
Well, Tucker, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Me and my team have decided to launch the Media Accountability Project as a tool to help fundraise and hold the media accountable for the lies they said and deal with them in court.
Interesting. So the idea is maybe like the Covington Catholic kids, you will be suing news organizations that maliciously lie about people who are in the news? Is that the plan?
Yes, sir. We're going to be holding them accountable, Tucker.
Do you, I guess I have to ask a kind of a dumb question, but why isn't there a group like this that exists already, since the media so often are not observers, they're players, they're participants in the news? Why hasn't someone done this before?
That's a good question, Tucker, and I'm not sure, to be honest, but I don't want to see anybody else have to deal with what I went through, so I want to hold them accountable for what they did to me, because I don't want to see anybody have to go through what I went through.
Yeah, they tried to imprison you for the rest of your life. It wasn't coverage, it was advocacy. You have a lot of potential targets to sue yourself. Will you be suing any of these news organizations, and if so, when?
Well, right now we're looking at quite a few politicians, celebrities, athletes. Whoopi Goldberg's on the list. She called me a murderer after I was acquitted by a jury of my peers. She went on to still say that. And there's others. Don't forget about Sank from the Young Turks. He called me a murderer before verdict and continues to call me a murderer.
Interesting. And what about the people who called you groundlessly a white supremacist, which makes it pretty hard to get a job for the rest of your life if you're a white supremacist? Will you be responding to them?
Absolutely. We are going to hold everybody who's lied about me accountable, such as everybody who's lied, called me a white supremacist.
Yeah.
They're all going to be held accountable, and we're going to handle them in a courtroom.
Kyle Rittenhouse, I appreciate your announcing that tonight, the Media Accountability Project, and of course we're rooting for justice as we always are, so thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you, Tucker. And if anybody wants to help join us in this battle, they can donate at tmap.org.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, as I said from the very beginning, I'm glad that somebody's doing something. It has to be done. The media are out of control, 100%. And before I go any further into it, I just want to say this. I'm not just upset with the media's liberal bias. That's not even the purpose. I'm not mad about that. You can have a liberal bias or a conservative bias, or you cannot be biased at all. I'm not mad about that, because typically I already know that anyway. If I happen to watch CNN for whatever reason I may watch it, I know that I'm watching a liberal network. Same thing with Fox. I know it's kind of conservative, right? Kind of centrist at this point, but that's a different story. I digress. Anyway, I know what I'm watching. I know there's going to be a liberal bias, conservative bias, middle of the road. I already know what it is. But there's a far cry from having a bias politically to telling outright lies. okay, issuing threats to people. Remember the whole thing with Nick Sammon when Van Jones said something like he has a punchable face? A punchable face, talking about what, a 15, 16-year-old, and you have no idea what's going on. All you saw was a clip on social media. You have no idea what's happening. You assumed, Van Jones, CNN, mainstream media, you assumed that this guy was attacking this elder native guy and he's a racist, all this, that, and the third. Because why? Because he's a young white male, right? Now, if that was a black male, you wouldn't even report on it. Even if this black male was threatening the native guy, even if he was, you wouldn't report on it. But in this case, he was just standing there minding his own business when that guy rolled up on him. If you see the extended clip, like, how am I, as a regular normie, just on the internet, able to find that out before the mainstream media does? It's because the mainstream media, at this particular point, they're not necessarily too concerned about the truth. They're worried about getting clicks and ratings and whatnot and money from the advertisers. They're not really worried about telling the truth. Okay. And it causes a problem when you damage people like this. When you say something like Cal Rittenhouse is a white supremacist, for weeks you're saying this. After he gets found not guilty, you still call him a white supremacist and a murderer, and he's killing black folks in cold blood. When you just spew lies like that, it's very damaging because your regular normie is not necessarily going to dig deeper into it. If they already believe that white people are bad and they don't like conservatives, they don't like guns, a story like that is a whole pot of red meat, and they're going to gobble it up. Now, if a retraction comes, which it probably never does, but if a retraction happens to come, they're not going to see it. They're not going to see the conclusion of the actual trial, okay? All they know is what they saw from the very beginning from the news, or what they heard from their friend at the barbershop, beauty salon, at the job, at the workplace, or wherever they happen to be. That's all they're going to hear. So it damages people for a very long time. Okay. Cal Rittenhouse knows this. Nick Sammon knows this. And also whole communities are damaged like this. The whole thing with Michael Brown, the hands up, don't shoot thing, that was proven false. People on the ground said it was false. You had to bring in Eric Holder, the former attorney general under Barack Obama. You had to bring him to Ferguson, Missouri to investigate and conclude that it was false. But yet, Ferguson still burned. There were still riots and protests and whatnot. And that same riotous energy persisted for years and is still there to this day in St. Louis. Rest in peace to Captain David Dorn. Okay. That same energy is there because of what the mainstream media did. When the mainstream media goes to a place and they have all their cameras and they're trying to hype things up. And you know what? I saw this happen in real time. I forget when this was. It might have been right around the time you saw that infamous meme of fiery, but mostly peaceful protests. When you saw stuff like that, the media were bloodthirsty to get a riot, to get a protest. Why? Because of what I was saying earlier. It's some advertising dollars. It's clicks, it's ratings, it's views, it's eyes on the network. Mainstream media is pretty much a dying thing, and they got to do whatever they can to get ratings and attention to the network. So they put out lies, misinformation, misleading stories, all that kind of stuff about people and about places, about politicians, about people that are politically affiliated, conservatives or whatever. They do that just to get attention and money, but it's got to stop. Now, somebody's going to say, well, freedom of speech. Well, freedom of speech ain't so cut and dry like that, because if you lie under oath, you go into the penitentiary. It's called perjury. Okay. You can't just say whatever you want. Or how about, what was that? Brian Banks, where there was a false allegation against him, some kind of assault allegation. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to say the R word, but you understand what I mean. There was a false allegation against him. He goes to the penitentiary for a long time. Now, the person who said the thing, who issued the false allegation, is no penalty going her direction? Is it just, oh, freedom, I say whatever I want, freedom of speech? At a certain point, you can't just say whatever you want to say about somebody because it damages them. It might put them in harm's way. It could be a threat issued against them. They might lose their life, their freedom, their job, all of that behind false allegations. And here's my last thing before I close. The mainstream media want us to believe that they are where the truth lies. Just like CNN had this whole thing, and I didn't mean any pun by truth lies, but CNN had this whole campaign about this is a banana. They'll tell you it's an apple, whatever they had. basically saying that we're the real news. We're not fake news like them. They'll gaslight you with false information saying that we're telling the wrong thing. But in the reality, once you watch CNN, they put out all kind of false information, all kind of misleading articles and whatnot, all kind of clickbait headline type stuff. It's to the point now where a lot of these mainstream media sources have become no more than just like National Enquirer. I believe National Enquirer more than I do CNN, ABC, XYZ, Alphabet, Letter, Legacy Media Organization. And they want to purport themselves as where the facts are, as the fact checkers, as the true media. You go on Google and search, you're going to get Legacy Media first and foremost, as if they are legitimate sources. But then more often than not, you're going to see that it's kind of misleading. It might not be true. And they put a lot of the opinion pieces out there. They put color commentators on there that say pretty much whatever. And the general public, not knowing any better, consume all of it as if it's true. They'll call Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. They'll call Nick Salmon the same thing. They'll say he attacked black folks in Kenosha, Wisconsin for no reason because he said Black Lives Matter. They'll say that Nick Salmon attacked this Native man in D.C. for no reason because he was out there protesting for Native rights. Ridiculous, stupid, untrue things that they got to get held accountable for, because if they don't, we're going to see further damage to our society. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about what Kyle Rittenhouse wants to do here, holding the media accountable for what they say? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. Is it a violation of free speech? Can you just say whatever you want to say? Can you say that somebody is a murderer when they got found innocent? And you say that in the context of being on a mainstream media source that purports itself as where the facts are, as a fact checkers, as true and legitimate and righteous and all this and that and the third. Can you do that? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I think it's high time that the media gets held accountable because they're very dangerous. It's one thing to have freedom of press and freedom of speech. It's a different thing to be basically the political enforcement team of the Democratic Party or of any kind of, political goal. You understand? Just like if there is a fight going on between two people politically, Democrat, Republican, and then the media heavily favors one side over the other, even without advertising revenue. You see what I mean? Like when you censor certain people from the mainstream media that are political opponents, it's like you've become state-run media. And we don't want to have that happen. So we got to have some kind of way to separate it rather than just letting them run roughshod over the country, therefore damaging it possibly beyond repair. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.